Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What's up, everybody out in the crypto world? Hope everyone is doing well, having a wonderful day. And yes, I know you cannot see my screen yet. It's coming. I'm just pulling up some items here that I want to talk about, and we will get going. So I'm going to talk some interesting news items here very quickly, and then we'll get to the chart. We'll talk BTC. Of course, it's selling off, pulling back again. Ain't no ladies in crypto. There's a couple. It's like 0.0001%. But there's a few out there. I got some crypto ladies that I know about in my group and stuff. So, hey, we got some ladies. All right, so let me go pull up my charts here. If you missed my video yesterday, I was talking about this is probably just a bounce. Be cautious. Looks like we're seeing the pullback. And hey, it is what it is. Where's the other item I was looking for here? Either way. All right. I might have to just skip some of that stuff. Everybody's waiting. Appreciate you guys sitting tight. You're an old lady. There is no video yet. It's coming. It is coming, my friends. All righty. One more. One more. Okay, let's do it. We will be seeing the charts. You should be coming up here any second now. Thank you guys for being patient. Thank you for hanging tight. Let's get this show on the road. All right, so we'll talk Bitcoin. Then we will look at some interesting, funny news items, whatever you want to call it. And then we will go through some chart reviews and take a look at some names that I'm watching here, and then some names that you guys want to take a look at. So first off, so Bitcoin, just kind of following up here. Let me go to a different exchange. I'm on Bittrex here. So here's Bitfinex. And this is the kind of the resistance zone that I was watching. And man, we couldn't even get that high, right? So if we go to the daily chart, the first level that I was watching, and I mentioned this in my video yesterday, was that 10 EMA on the daily. It just continues to be a place of resistance when we had this bounce. And so this was kind of like the first area to pay attention to. And then if it continued higher, then this little next area was going to be the place of the bigger resistance, in my opinion, where I thought we would have stalled out at. We stalled out earlier than that. And it just goes to show you kind of the weakness, the underlying jumpiness that is still in the market. And you saw it follow suit when Bitcoin just started to show the first signs of weakness that we had here late yesterday. As soon as Bitcoin did this little pop to the downside around that $7,200 mark, a lot of the alts just turned tail and tucked right back in. We were seeing some nice setups, some pretty good breakouts. And unfortunately, as soon as Bitcoin showed that first sign of weakness, the alts just pulled right back in. And that's the nature of the market right now. It's just characteristic of the jumpiness, the lack of bullishness, if you will. Everyone's still suspect of the move, and rightly so. And you should be, because until the longer term picture turns, the daily, the trend is still down, right? So unfortunately, that's how it is right now. But we're looking at some key levels here on the downside, right? So these are some areas to be watching now. We've rallied back into the 10 EMA. It was a little bit of a relief rally from some oversold conditions that we saw here a few days ago. And now we're retesting. So there's two ways this is going to play out, right? We're going to find a higher low, and then we're going to see a bigger volume reversal come back in. And this is going to say, okay, this was probably a pretty good low. And then we'll start retesting those resistance points up here. Or we're going to undercut that. And what I'm looking for is this RSI and seeing if that can bottom out here, right? And it looked like it was trying to back here a few days ago. We hit 30, but it just felt too quiet, right? It wasn't that like washout panic selling, bottoming action that you see when the RSI dips that low. And so even though it went low, it didn't feel like it was the big scare. And unfortunately, this is how markets work, guys. They get you out at the worst time and get you in at the most inopportune time. And what tends to happen is, you just look at the sentiment, right? It's kind of bearish. How much more can we take? You get a rally. Okay, we're good. And then we roll over the last week. It was just, pure despair out there, bearishness. And here we are seeing a little bit of a bounce just when everyone's hopes are finally getting up. Okay, I can't take anymore. We're finally bouncing. And then you get one more leg down. People often will throw in the towel at that point. And unfortunately, that's generally the bottom. And that's just typical market action. And it doesn't matter if it's crypto, if it's stocks, if it's anything else. I mean, you just kind of have that, because at the end of the day, these charts and the buying, the selling, you got to remember this is an auction market system, and it's representative of the big emotions that play out in any investment arena: fear and greed. And that's it, right? It's a psychology game, and that's what you end up seeing play out here over and over. But the indicators certainly help and all that, but you got to look at the price volume action. So someone was asking me earlier, hey, what price are you looking at for this thing to bottom out? I'm looking mostly at the price and volume action, not necessarily a specific price. I want to see the way this plays out. But as far as specific prices go to the downside, the most important one is going to be here, right? The low from a couple of days ago. So that's going to be the first test. And then ultimately the February low, so around that 6K area. If you caught my video that I did about a week ago talking about, hey, maybe we're repeating a 2013 type of cycle and not 2014. In that video, I mentioned the big buy zone that I'm watching is that zone between 6 and 5K, right? So this little area here, let me highlight it for you guys. As far as a longer term picture goes, right, that's kind of the buy zone that I'm going to be looking for if this thing really starts to break down. And if you go to the weekly charts, this is what it translates into, right? This last big base we had back here around that 5K area, and then the low in February. And so anywhere in kind of between there, and it is a big range. Obviously, it's $1,000 range, 15% wide, but given the the direction we've come down from, it's not that much further down. So we could see one more dip down. If we do a dip to 6K and form a big double bottom and start to rally off of there, that would be good. We need to see volume come in, or we will maybe undercut it a little bit, which is probably the most likely scenario, because you tend to do that and not a bottom out exactly there. You'll tend to kind of undercut, take out some stops, and then rally higher. So as far as prices go, that's kind of what I'm looking for in the ballpark for buy zones. But ultimately, I'm going to be looking more for price volume action and taking my clues there. And so I'll be looking at just the volume on the way down, on the way up, the RSI, some of the sentiment, some of the action in the alts, because I think they will bottom out first. And so that's what I'm looking at. But near term, these are the two most important prices to watch here. This 64 just above, and then that 6K February low. So that's Bitcoin. You can see here on my chart, I've got this proprietary bull momentum index, and just look at how weak that has been ever since this double top here a couple of weeks ago. It's just dropped, and just on the daily chart has not been able to gain any strength whatsoever. On the 4-hour chart was looking pretty good here for a few days. This was enough to get me in for a little while, do some trading, and then you can just see it just started to really weaken out here, and we dropped off. And some of the early clues, if you zoom in, you guys know I use RSI quite a bit. And while this thing was trying to rally yesterday, you can see we started to lose a little bit of momentum here. And at some point when RSI drops below a certain level, then it really starts to accelerate. And then that's when we saw this momentum really kick into the downside. And so following this little bit of a pullback here yesterday, we had this bounce attempt, but the RSI was very weak at that point. So I tightened my stops quite a bit to secure some profits. And stops are important when you're trading, guys, because I mean, this got me out right there, and I was able to avoid that entire leg down on the in the trading account. So that's why they're very important. It'll help secure some of the profits if you don't sell into strength. And so that's where I'm at right now, just kind of waiting this out. You can see we've had these little bit of bounces into the moving averages, but for now, I'm just sitting tight, waiting this out on the short-term time frame. It is oversold near term, it's bouncing a little bit on the 1 hour, but it doesn't feel like it's done yet. So I'm going to just wait it and wait for some positive actions to start showing up, and then we'll go from there. So before I move into some of the other names, let me go through some things. One of the big items here, ASICs are here for Ethereum. Crypto did a video on this. Some other folks have done some good videos on this. And so for those of you that are not familiar with this, ASICs have been around for Bitcoin for a while. There's some, I guess you would say, controversy about that because it kind of centralizes the mining quite a bit. So to date, Ethereum and many other altcoins have been GPU mineable, and a lot of them are ASIC resistant. And ASIC is just basically application specific IC. All it is a chip that is basically designed to do one thing, and in this case, mine Ethereum, right? And it's very expensive to develop and to produce the initial run of any ASIC. You see ASICs everywhere. You see them in cell phones, you see them in computers, but that's because they're going to mass produce and they're going to get their money back from the development costs. And so the big thing is, could Ethereum hard fork and render these ASICs useless, or some of the built-in mechanisms there in terms of the rewards and all that? And so we'll see where it goes, but it's kind of big news. ASICs, right? They're big for Bitcoin. Are they going to prove to be big for Ethereum and some of these other chips? There's Dash one. There's just different ones that are out there, different miners, but it's big business, no doubt. Bitmain made a ton of money last year. Other major technology IC manufacturing firms, what do you want to call it, are getting into this market because it's very lucrative. And so that's it. ASICs are here. There was a little bit of a scare earlier today. There was some Binance login issues. They issued a new code update when there was a bug that went in. But, as always, I continue to be impressed with the way they handle things. They're back on it. They announce when things are happening, and they tend to fix it relatively quickly. I know we had Binance go down a few months ago, and they were down for a few days. But this was not that big of a deal. It was a little bit of a scare for a while, but they're back on. So no issues with Binance right now. And then Telegram, just raking in the dough. What is that? They had 2 rounds now, $850 million a piece. There's a pretty good article talking about the different people that have invested in this. But the interesting thing here is, Iran was talking about how this is going to undermine national security because there's going to be capital outflows from people using Telegram, and they're going to ban the app. And of course they would, right? They don't want freedom of speech, freedom of capital flows, anything like that. So we've seen that here before. But Telegram, man, that's a huge ICO. They're kind of following the rules, right? They're doing accredited investors, and they're treating it very much like a traditional investment funding round, right? And not letting just anybody buy some of the tokens. And so that's going to be a big one. We'll see where this one goes. Telegram is kind of one of the few independent, if you want to call it that, messaging apps that have not been acquired by Facebook or Google or Microsoft or any of those people. But that's going to be a big one here. So, all right, let's get to some more charts here. So a couple of other items that I'm liking here. Beyond Bitcoin, some of these other alts are showing bottoming type of action, right? And one of the ones I'm watching here is ETH. Been seeing this one just hit some very oversold conditions. I just deleted my volume. Let me reload that. All right. I'll have to load it again. But anyway, this is what I'm watching here. ETH has hit a long-term, I wouldn't say long-term low, but it's come back to this long-term support area versus the USD, because on this chart, you can see this is basically back to this big base here, right? And everyone's wondering, is that dead? I personally don't think it is. Sure, it's had a huge pullback. There's a lot of headwinds. There are a lot of the ICOs that have raised a lot of this, dumping it. There's all of that. There's the news of the ASICs. There's a lot of that. But here it is, refusing to continue to drop further, and is trying to find a low. Now, it hasn't confirmed yet. You can see clearly it's living below this short-term moving average, and the weakness and the trend is still very much down. But in the near term, it's so oversold. I'm seeing an attempt to bottom out here a little bit. And so I'm watching this, and in the 4-hour chart, what I'm looking at is if this can hold around that 370 or so, then you have the potential makings of an inverted head and shoulder pattern forming on this 4-hour chart, with the neckline, basically being around that 417, 418 area. So look out for that here in the next day or so. If we start to rally and it looks like we want to form that right shoulder, then this would be a significant move above that 418, 420 mark, because then that could set up a pretty good rally off of these lows. And so I'm watching that as a near-term setup here. And that's the thing you want to look out for, right? In these markets that have just continued to see selling pressure for days and weeks on end, when it looks like a low may be near, you want to start looking for some reversal patterns, right? And so an inverted head and shoulders, a double bottom, a rounded bottom, triple bottoms, all that type of stuff, these kind of sideways channels, falling wedges. And so that's what I'm starting to look for, right? I'm looking for these type of patterns to start showing up. It doesn't necessarily mean you take action on them right away, but that's how you start building up the watch list and figuring out, hey, who's going to maybe find a low here near term. Alternatively, while the market's still dropping, you look for those names that are starting to move higher, even while most other names are starting to drop. Right? Those names that are starting to show good relative strength. And so you got to keep an eye out for those two. But ETH is looking pretty interesting. Let's go to Litecoin here. Litecoin was showing some pretty good action yesterday, pulling in quite a bit here, giving a lot of that up. But we'll see how this plays out on the daily chart here. You can see this one also rallied right into that moving average and has just given it all back here and some now. So just a sign of the overall weakness in the market. A lot of these rallies are just being sold into it the first time they hit some resistance levels. And so this one's looking a little bit weaker now, but on versus BTC here, it was shaping up pretty nicely. It was sitting in a really tight range here for a few days, and then had that move higher, pulling in right now, but looking like it wants to hold. So got to keep an eye on this one versus BTC. Some names that have been strong: Binance. Everyone's FOMOing into Binance now. Let me go to the BNB. So BNB on the USD pair still looks really good. It's actually playing out exactly how I was hoping it would, right? We had this rally into this resistance, gave you this pullback to the breakout point, rally right back into that resistance. And now it's forming a little bit of a cup and handle type of pattern. What we want to see on this is this pullback not get too much deeper, right? Anywhere around here, holding would be very nice. As it starts to move higher, that could set up for a very nice breakout on Binance USD. Now it's right at the all-time highs versus Bitcoin. I'll go to that chart here in a sec. But if you look at the USD pairing, right, this is a nice little cup and handle pattern on the 4-hour that's forming. If you go to the daily chart, it looks very strong. I mean, this nice little base that's been forming here over the last month and a half, looking very solid here, with the clear breakout point being that 14, mid-lower $14 range. Above that, you'll see Binance test $16. And then if it can get to that, then the old highs around $22. If that happens, most likely it'll be well above the highs versus BTC. And so keep an eye on that one. But even just from short-term trading, even if it goes to $16, mid 16, that's over 30% move from here. So definitely one of the stronger looking names here as of late. Let's go to Binance BTC. You can see on the daily chart, it's right at the old highs here. So let me scroll this down a little bit to kind of give you some upper room. But you can see versus the daily chart here, the old highs right there. Very typical action. You rally right back to the old highs. A lot of selling, profit taking, that sort of thing shows up there. And next, what I want to see here, may not get it, but what I want to see here is a little bit of a pause and maybe even a little bit of a handle and then the breakout, right? That will give this RSI some time to cool off a little bit and give it some stronger legs, if you will, some more technical upper headway from which to have a longer rally beyond the highs, right? If it breaks out here, the thing is, look at the RSI is already at 80. Like, yeah, it could go a little bit higher, but it'll get exhausted pretty quickly. So it's actually a lot better if it just pauses and has a little bit of time to consolidate and reset the move, because then that'll make for a much more sustainable rally versus BTC here. So both charts are looking pretty good all around, though. BNB USD, BNB BTC, and so got to keep an eye on that one. Let me go through a few more here. Link was flashing some alerts earlier for me. It had like a 1 hour pop and then reversal. So not sure what drove that. I didn't do any research, any news on this one, but this was one I kind of have been watching for a couple of days here at the lows. And then out of nowhere, I had this huge pop and then came all the way right back to the bottom, but now it's bounced up pretty good. So if anybody knows what's going on there, go ahead and drop that in the comments. I haven't had time to look into that one yet. But I did get an alert earlier, and this one was popping off the lows here on some pretty decent volume. All right, so let me go through some of these comments and make sure that I'm catching all of these thoughts here. And so if you guys have joined later, I will go through Bitcoin once again towards the end, or at least a couple of times here, and just share some thoughts, do some updates along the way. But you know, the sentiment out there is pretty bearish still. A lot of people are kind of thinking we're doomed. This is it. It's over. It's coming down more. And I'm still in the camp that I think we're going to see a low point in April, and the alts will have outperformance when that happens. And so that's so far, that's where I'm at, right? I'm still in that ballpark. And if you missed my $50,000 to $80,000 Bitcoin video, watch that. It's pretty. It had quite a few views, and it's been a thought I threw out there, and just wanted to get your guys' take on that one. So, all right, so let me see here. Just kind of scrolling through the notes here as I'm rambling, just to get a list of names you guys want to check out here. So, we got so Verge, yeah, that's been up there quite a bit here lately. So we'll do some of the popular names that I've been watching here. So no more love for OMG. You don't mention it much. I still hold some OMG. It's just, I probably don't mention it as much in my videos. It's hard to cover like all of them all the time. I still like it. I think it's a good project long term. Near term certainly has been very weak, along with most other names. If you go to OMG versus BTC, it was setting up real nice here, kind of rolled over, but I'm keeping an eye on it here at these lows. It's looking like it may have found a bottom, but we need some upside confirmation at this point. It's just a little bit of a bounce, but at least you're starting to see some kind of sideways action now, and not just straight sharp moves down to the bottom. But long term, I still think it's a great project. It's something I like. I'm going to keep an eye on for sure. From a trading perspective lately, I haven't been doing a whole lot with it. It's kind of been basing out here, going sideways. You can see here's the hourlies versus BTC, and on the USD pair. Was looking pretty good here on this bounce, but just like everything else, pulling in a little bit. So, but I'm not, I don't have anything against this project, that's for sure. This one's looking pretty good. Let me add my volume back in here, guys, because I deleted that. And you guys know I like my volume. All right. So let's go through a few other names here. Let me pull up a list that I had, a list of names that I was watching. So we'll do ICX. Man, ICX was looking pretty good yesterday, and was doing a little trading on that one, but it just got a little shaky. So here's what I was doing on ICX here. I was watching this base here a couple of days ago, and when ICX had a little bit of an attempt to breakout, I took a position, and then I was holding that yesterday, and it looked like it was finally breaking out. We saw that happen on some good volume. Then I moved my stop up and got whipsawed out. Tried to break out again here on some good volume, but just pulling right back in. And so it's a little shaky. Not doing anything with it here in the near term. Longer term, I think it still looks good. I mean, I think this is a good low here on this daily chart. It's just high volume, very good action coming off the lows. This is a good pullback. And so from that perspective, I still like it. I think this chart looks really strong. This was a nice change in the trend. We're having a higher low being established now. And I think in the intermediate, next couple of weeks to months, ICX, I believe, will go higher. Near term, certainly a little bit shaky, just like anything else. But, it's kind of channeling here, putting in a little bit of a base. But there's some accumulation happening. You can see these big volume spikes as it tries to move out of range. But for now, it's being contained with the overall market sentiment that we're seeing. But I still like this one, so definitely on the watch list. WAN was one I was watching here. And so WAN was looking really good here yesterday, just setting up. Look how tight this range was getting. And so you can see the bounds that I was watching here. Let me clear some of these lines for you guys. But I was watching this range here and finally looked like it was breaking out yesterday. And then just pulled right back in along with the rest of the market on that first pullback with BTC. And now we're kind of seeing this thing hit some headwind. But so far, look where it's holding. It's still holding the lower end of this base. So as long as that continues to hold, very good action, still positive. RSI is holding above that 40 mark. So it's living in that bull zone. But I want to see some follow through, some more upside on this guy. The daily chart's setting up for a pretty good run, in my opinion. But we need to get this. We need to get this breakout, and so that's going to be the big level of resistance that it needs to clear here. Let me move the line here right on the daily chart. That's going to be it. And I actually have an alert set on my watch list here. So WAN, let me know when you start breaking out, WAN. And so all around, though, it's still setting up pretty nicely. So I'm liking that one. Let me see here. A couple others that I was watching. Cardano was moving out of range here, trying to see some action yesterday, but then we saw some reversal happening here. But if you go to the daily chart, it's still living below this range that I'm watching. It was trying yesterday, and the action looks good all around. I still think it's trying to put in a good low. This low is very long. This base is going sideways for some time, and so it's not going to take a whole lot to get this above this yellow line if we see some good action come in. I mean, that's less than 10% above, right? So a move above that, especially with some good volume, would really start to confirm that that was a good longer term low for Cardano. And so that's what I'm watching on this one here. Near term, though, it's trying. You've seen some accumulation showing up here. You've seen some good volume action on the shorter term timeframes there. You've seen some there, right? So it's seen a little bit of accumulation. It's still not in rally mode, if you will. But I'm liking the way this one's setting up here near term. So got to keep an eye on Cardano. This is really the line I'm watching right now. Just kind of the bigger picture view there. Okay, let me go through a few other names here on your list here. Oh, when's the bull run, Node? Oh man, I think we're close, guys. I know it's tough to hang tight. 3 months in crypto, 3-month bear market in crypto feels like a year, doesn't it? When I think about January, I'm like, was that this year? Man, January, that feels like so long ago. But yeah, I hear you, man. Hang tight, folks. We'll get there. So let me see here. Ontology. Let's do that one here. That's a name that I was watching here for a ascending triangle based setup. It's still looking really good. And so I talked about this one. I think I talked about this one in my live stream. And this is really the level I'm watching here. And I mentioned this is a good pullback. We made a higher low. And as long as that pattern continues, this was going to set up a very nice ascending triangle based pattern. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. You're seeing this, I mean, almost textbook. And so the way these work is these are basically just pauses that reset and set up another leg. And so it's a continuation pattern, right? You've had this very strong rally in ontology off the lows. It got a little overheated. It needed some time to consolidate, but you're not seeing this massive selling show up, right? You're just seeing these pauses, higher lows showing up, which means the buyers are stepping in at higher and higher prices. The sellers are getting exhausted. And so the way these play out, if it's going to continue, is you get really tight here near the breakout point. And what you want to look for is a breakout on some strong volume. and that's going to set up a potential another leg higher. You can do a measured move on these guys and take it the depth of the base to the breakout point, extrapolate that out. Let's see what that points out to. So if you do that, a breakout from here would take you about another 23, 24% higher. So not bad, but keep in mind, this would also put it at all-time high territories. And so at that point, these measured moves don't really hold much weight, because once you're breaching these new highs and it can really run at that point, there's not any overhead resistance. And so at that point, then I'm just looking at price and volume action. I'm looking at some levels to see when it starts hitting some climactic type of action. But nice setup. So got to keep an eye on this one. Ontology is looking really good here. All right, let's go through a few more here. Let me go through NEO. So NEO USD. Did it finally find a low? Come on, NEO. And so let's go to the daily chart on NEO. I was talking about this long time support line here. I think NEO in the 50 down to $40 range is probably going to be the long time low point here. A good place to look at it from a long-term perspective. I still like the project long-term, and personally, I think NEO's undervalued now. So just having this big pullback down from the 200 range, it's undervalued. It should be a triple-digit coin, at least, in my opinion, $100 NEO. And so $40, $50 NEO is definitely something worth looking at. But this is the base that I'm watching here. It's got to hold this line in this mid-lower $40 range. And it hasn't confirmed the trend, break of the downtrend yet. I mean, this is clearly in a downtrend on the daily chart. There is no, other than these oversold bounce attempts, relief rallies, whatever you want to call them, there's no confirmation yet that this is done going down. So you still got to be cautious with that. But I'm looking at this zone here. Certainly it could undershoot a little bit and then go higher. Happens all the time. But I'm watching it here, looking for that sign of a reversal off these lows. Versus Bitcoin, also at a little bit of a support level, holding sideways right now, but still not looking strong either. Just very much in a downtrend, living below this short-term moving average. All bounces to that have been sold into. And so you got to be cautious with this one, because this is almost a little bit of a descending triangle now, right? I mean, you kind of look at the way this is shaping up here. I would be careful, because this one could break support, and if it does, you'll get another leg down. On the BTC chart, the next level of support, if it breaks, is down here, and that would be another about 20% lower versus Bitcoin. And so that's going to be the area to watch if this chart decides to see another leg down versus BTC. And right now, the odds favor you would get some selling, just because that's the trend. The momentum is to the downside right now. All right, let me see. So you guys, we talked to NEO. You guys want to talk Tron? Come on, Tron. All right, let's do some Tron. See what's going on with this Tron here. And so obviously Tron had that little bit of a rally, selling off. I think I mentioned this on my weekend stream. We were seeing a pretty good bounce, and I said that's all it is. It's a bounce into resistance. Most likely it's going to fail here, and we'll see some selling. And that's what we're seeing. I'm not seeing any signs of a low just yet on this daily chart. It looks like the trend has really changed. The momentum's weakening out here. A lot of sell volume showed up here, so that's not a good sign. Usually you see the big volume selling near the highs. So it looks like it wants to go lower. The trend's lower right now. What I would look for is a break above this level here would be needed to kind of set up a higher low and really confirm that maybe that's just a good secondary entry point. If you do a fib analysis, how does that play out? I haven't looked at that. Let me go peak to peak on this. And if we do that, we're basically right at the 618 level. So it certainly could find a low here in and around this area and then start to bounce. But again, getting above this 508 or so, 510 mark is really the area I would want to see for it to kind of confirm on the daily chart. On the very near term, right, it's trying to find a low. There's some good volume coming in here at these lows, but still no real upside confirmation just yet. So there's Tron for you guys. All right, let's take a quick break. Let's go back to Bitcoin. I know we've got a few more folks joining us here, so let's do a quick update on BTC where I see that going here. For those of you that are joining just to talk BTC, some of that other good stuff. I have not done IOTA, have not done Wabi or ZIL sub, so I'll get to some of those. Stellar, I'll definitely look at that one. Power's looking good, so we'll go through more of these names. Let's take a quick break, talk some BTC. So looking at Bitcoin, the breakout point here on this double bottom was this trend line that I was watching. Clearly, we've breached that. So we've reset the chart as far as I'm concerned. Kind of just looking for a new setup, looking for a new double bottom that I was watching yesterday is no longer in play. It was a good tradable rally, but this rally failed right into that 10 EMA daily. And so you can see that here. We rallied right into that. That's where it paused. Couldn't get much higher than that. Momentum really started to wane. We saw the RSI roll over on the shorter term timeframes, and then big day down, undercutting these last 2 days. So not good action. Near term, the level to watch now is this most recent low around 6,400, and then below that, the February low, which is right around 6K. So from here down, you're looking at another 5% to 11, 12%. This green box here is kind of my long-term buy zone low that I think we'll see before the, in a washout type of event, if we do see the big sell-off. And that would mark a pretty significant low that I think would set up a good rally from there. So that's what I'm watching. But near term, that's what we got to see. If we do set up a higher low today in a big volume reversal, which I'm not expecting, but if we did, then this would make for an interesting pattern with a higher low now, and it would confirm this low at 64, which is a pretty good volume low. It would confirm that that was a good intermediate low, but we really got to basically hold the current level now. I mean, we can't get much lower. Otherwise, it's not going to really be a higher low. It wouldn't make a good double bottom either, because you had this rally and then you have this higher high. And if we came all the way back down, that's just not a clean looking chart. So it either has to hold here, or we're going to be looking for a retest of this level down here. So that's what I'm looking at on the BTC side. Looking at the daily chart, ultimately, got to get above this moving average near term and start holding above that. You can see there's a clear trend line that needs to be taken out here now on the downturn in the near term, right? So the near term trend line, that would put you basically right at that 7,400 mark, which is the high from yesterday, today, whatever you want to call it. So that would break that. In the long run, the big downtrend is still very much there. Let me take the log off. It'll help show that more. But that's really the trend that needs to be taken out, right, in the longer term. And that's a little bit flatter of a line. That puts you all the way back to around 7,800, 8K before that's confirmed as a trend break to the upside. And so just something to keep an eye out in the near term. But for now, I'm keeping an eye on the downside. That's the level that I'm watching. So we'll see where this plays out here in the next few days. Let's go back to some of these other names. So ZIL definitely has been on the radar as of late. And so I was liking this breakout that we saw last week, had a pretty good move higher, consolidation, and then breakout attempt yesterday, but just really giving that up with the market sentiment just kind of rolling over. I think it's still one to keep on the radar for sure. Right now, let me see, do a fib on this. On this entire move, it looks like it's peaked near term. So now it's just a matter of how far back do we pull back before we find a higher low and potentially bounce from there. So the 382 level on the fib side is that second yellow line that I've been watching, and that would be the first pullback zone. If it holds there, that would just go to show the strength of this one, because it only pulled back to 382, and that'd be a nice little secondary entry if we could bounce off of that line. Otherwise, the 618 level, but that would be a pretty deep correction, and it would not paint the picture very well, because this chart doesn't have a lot of history. So it would just be a big rally and then a big pullback. Wouldn't look very strong. So ideally, you want to hold this 382 level, which right now is around that 570 mark or so on this BTC chart. So that's what I'm looking for, which would put us basically right here as kind of the potential buy zone. And that actually lines up with some of the technical readings here. If you look at the RSI, it's cooled off quite a bit here on this 4 hour. So if it did continue to go a little bit lower and find support here, at that point, the RSI might be right back down to 30 or so. Looking for that as a place to bounce, but ultimately, it's got to take out that near-term downtrend and then start to move higher. So definitely one to keep on the radar, though. I like the way this one is setting up. Stellar Lumens. So Stellar was looking pretty good. It was one of the kind of one of the stronger names here the last couple of days. It was setting up well. Oh, this is on BitMEX. Sorry. Let me. I picked the wrong one here. Let me go to another one because there's no volume. I gotta have my volume. All right. So looking at Stellar, I was really liking this, and there's just so many failed breakouts yesterday. It's unfortunate. We had this nice setup. I mean, it was very clean. Started to rally, put in a little bit of a handle right below the breakout point. I mean, just textbook, right? Just classic action. And then the breakout, good volume came in right on that breakout, and then it failed, just petered out. And then a lot of selling volume started to come in, and here it is. Seeing a little bit of a throwback, not unusual. So if this is still going to be in play, it's got a bottom right here, right? Otherwise, if it gets too much deeper, then that's a failed breakout. But it's not unusual to see a breakout, a throwback, and then the rally higher, which is why sometimes when you see the breakout, it's good to just wait for a little bit of a pause, pullback before jumping on. But don't want to see this get much deeper, otherwise that will be a failed breakout. But for now, it still looks pretty good. This was a nice little bit of a setup. If you go to the daily charts, not bad at all, right? I mean, it's a pullback to a moving average, sitting tight. As long as it starts to hold right around these levels, then it's still in play, in my opinion. And it's also setting up a little bit of an inverted head and shoulder pattern here at the lows. Good bottoming type of formation. You can see you had this shoulder here. This long wick would be the head, and then this would be your right shoulder. And ideally in these inverted head and shoulder patterns, you want the head to have the highest volume, and that's what we saw here. So that would line up well. And so we got to see this reversal take out and would still be in place. So lumens all around, it's still looking good. Near term, though, I got to see this thing bottom out here pretty soon. Let me take a drink of my water here. All right. So we did ontology. Let me go through the notes here. We did Cardano. I did Litecoin and F at the beginning, but I will certainly cycle through those again. We did Icon. We have not done Verge. I'll do that one next. And then let me see what else we got here. We did Zill. Have not done IOTA, so let's go through those. So let's do Verge. Actually, I have Verge out here on my chart. Verge. So Verge, the good buy point in Verge, and I know it's too late now, was right here. This was your secondary entry point. That was at the breakout. It paused right there. And then we saw the big rally, of course. That was partly news, announcement driven, whatever you want to call it. But those are the type of setups you want to look for, right? When you have these strong rallies, you know me, I don't like to chase them. I'd rather let them pause, cool off a little bit. But this was perfect. I mean, it was just pausing, setting right up. And as soon as you start to see it turn the corner, that's usually a good buy signal there. And we had this big rally, but then it started to hit some pretty oversold conditions here in the near term. And wasn't a bad place to look at it for a profit-taking perspective. When something goes up 40, 50% in, less than a day, at least tighten some stops or something, right? I mean, this is trading. I mean, obviously, if you're a long-term believer, then this has got a ways to go. But when you see these kind of bars, I generally will sell into that. That's just climactic action. And that's actually what I had told my group earlier. And I said, I would personally be taking profits into that. We're seeing a little bit of a pause now. So near term, it's holding the 10 EMA on the 4-hour. And as long as that continues, this is still good, right? It's trending. It's not unusual to see these pullbacks right back to this moving average. The volume is coming in on the pullback, which is healthy. That's what you want. And now what you want to see is some more upside, and then the volume starting to increase again as it starts to move higher. And so that's what you want to look for next. So near term on Verge, It's got to hold this little bit of a zone that it's been finding a bottom at here. So the bottom that we saw in the pullback here, which was 810, ideally that's what you wanted to see at most, but probably higher than that. So it's still looking pretty good here. Just got a little overdone here in the near term, but not looking bad. Let's see here. Someone was mentioning Bitcoin here. Bitcoin still going lower, as I expect near term. So power, man, power was seeing some pretty good action yesterday. But what I don't like to see is when something is so strong, but they look at this big reversal. That's a lot of sellers showing up on this spike. So there was a lot of sellers that came into power as the thing moved higher. Not a good sign usually. Right now, it's still holding the moving average, but it looks like it wants to roll over. So I'd be cautious on this one. It was a nice breakout, and so it could have a throwback right to the breakout point. And this is where I'd be looking at it. If it doesn't hold that, then that's a failed breakout. So I'd be cautious on this one. It looks like it wants to come down a little bit. On the daily chart, definitely trying to find a low here. So even if it fails this breakout, but if it comes back in and holds this second low down here that it's held for the last couple of weeks, that's good still, right? So it's still trying to put in a longer term low. Near term, I was trying to see a breakout. Couldn't see some follow through yet, but just watch this moving average. It could come back in and then start to rally higher. We did WAN earlier. I'll try to cycle back to that one again. That one's still setting up pretty good. I like WAN. Breakout attempt yesterday didn't follow through, but it's still in range, so it's still looking pretty good here. Syndicator. So don't know what drove that yesterday. It had a huge move. Someone was actually asking me about this one yesterday. The move, it was right here. And I was thinking, hey, this is not bad. It's kind of in range. No real buy signals yet. And then it did this like 2 hours later. Don't know what drove that, but it's pulling right back in now, basically right back to the breakout point. So maybe a good secondary entry point. You don't like to see them go up that high and then just give it all up. I mean, that was a big, what was that, 20% like in 2 hours, 3 hours? And it's giving all back up now, right? So that's kind of a cautionary sign. But what you would want to see here is, can it hold this range, build a little base, and then start to move higher? If it can get above this again here, then that's the area that I'd be looking at it again. But got to see some upside confirmation. Smaller volume name for sure, you can see. So it doesn't take a lot of volume to really pump that thing. But in the big picture, like so many of these names, they are putting in this big long base, right? And so it's going to be real important to see these big bases finally translate into a changing trend. Otherwise, if we can get moving here soon, you're going to see a pretty steep breakdown below. And on this one, next level down is right around here. And that is another, from this point, about 30 to 40%. So that's significant. And so these things got to really start to break out here soon and capitalize on some of this potential bottoming action that we've been seeing in the last couple of days and weeks on a lot of these alts. Let me see. We did ICX. We did ZIL. What were the other ones I meant? I said I was going to do next. I said I was going to do Verge, IOTA. That's what it was going to be, IOTA. And it was going to be, hold on. Let me scroll through the notes here. I think it was Wabi. Wabi's trying. Also, another one I think has found a low personally, but got to wait for some upside confirmation. And I think we're seeing it. So pretty good low here, basing out here, and some volume is attempting to come back in here. Big volume spike, pulling right back in now. But this is these are good secondary entries when you see these type of spikes. If they can come right back to the breakout point or just above, that's where you want to take a look at it, and could offer a secondary entry. That's why you don't want to chase these huge green candles, right? I always say that. Don't chase them. But man, that was a 26% move. But you're seeing that kind of in a lot of names here today. It was weird. It was just out of nowhere. There's all these big spikes, and then they just sell them off. So keep an eye on this one here. See if it can bottom out right into this range. If it continues just to drift lower, then not sure what to make of that. But smaller volume name, and it doesn't take a whole lot to pump it that much. I covered Link at the beginning. Link was another one that did something similar here just a little bit ago. Let me go back to Link real quick. And you can see this one's trying to hold, right? Had that big volume, pull back, volume came in. So this one, got to keep an eye on this one. Link is looking like it's trying to get a movement going, trying to get a rally here. And the problem is, you got the market sentiment is a strong headwind right now. And with BTC continuing to break down, that's going to contain a lot of these rallies, unfortunately. But so many of these alts are setting up for it, these lows. But we just got to wait to see what BTC does here. It's just the momentum is still very much to the downside, unfortunately. So IOTA still trying to hold that key psychological $1 mark. And if we go to IOTA, is it finally breaking? It could reverse here, but IOTA, I mean, a couple of days ago, it went down to around 94 cents. It's looking like it's retesting that here, but this zone here is a big support long term. Got to break this downtrend though. Just very much still in play. Got to break that longer term downtrend. So until that happens, right, got to remain cautious with any of these rallies. But man, it's right at a key level. It needs to hold here. Otherwise, see, if we break that, then you're looking at maybe 70 cents IOTA as the next base versus BTC. It's still higher than the lows in Feb, so maybe we do hold, and we'll have to just see. A lot of that is just the BTC action kind of pulling down the USD pairings. All right. Let's see here. So I'm going to scroll through some of these comments. Thanks for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Hit that like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter at NodeInvestor. I'm guessing a lot of you guys probably do already because that's usually where I post when I'm going to go live. We haven't done VeChain yet, so I'll do that one. Let me see. BNB is taking over the BTC leadership. BNB is good, man. Doubling up on coins and no VeChain. All right, just for that, I'm going to do VeChain last. VeChain is off my list. Let's do VeChain next. Gotta keep you guys happy, which is impossible. You know that, right? It's impossible to keep you guys happy. So looking at VeChain, we had that little bit of a pump, a little bit of news announcement being added to an exchange. That's really what drove it. I was not liking the fact that VeChain broke this support level a couple of days ago, and I thought this is going to keep going lower, and it was until that news came in, kind of pumped it higher, but it's losing a little bit of that momentum right now. And so see if we can hold. The project is pretty interesting long term. I mean, definitely, this whole supply chain space tracking, I think, is one of the big areas for blockchain and one of the stronger use cases near term. And so got to keep an eye on this one. It's one of the leaders in the space, but just kind of losing a little bit of steam following that announcement yesterday. Put in a little bit of a double top here. You can see that here. We pulled back in. That's a nice secondary entry point, but then it rallies, fails to break out, and now it's breaking down below that double top. As long as it's living below this moving average on that 4-hour chart, it's considered risky in my opinion, and the momentum's going to keep going lower. So we'll see. You can see this momentum is really starting to wane here near term. But VeChain, longer term, I don't know. I mean, it's just it's still digesting this massive move that it had, and it just needs more time. But it's looking like it's found a pretty good low here in the longer term. So needs to hold, but I think it's looking pretty good. Let's see here. Oh, going through some of these, make sure I haven't done some of these other ones. Spank Chain. You guys want Spank Chain, huh? Let's do EOS. So looking at EOS, I like EOS, guys. The chart of EOS. Let me put it that way. Let me clarify. I like the chart of EOS. And so this is what I'm looking at on EOS. We're stepping our way higher. We had this pullback, nice pullback here. I was talking about this one here yesterday and saying, I want to see this thing hold, but I want to see some upside confirmation. It looks like we're getting that. I mean, this is the level I'm looking at. It's right about, this is probably going to beep during this live stream. I've got an alert set right there, and it's looking pretty good. I want to see some volume come in though, but this is nice because it's the pullback. Moving average, or the RSI, excuse me, is holding at this 40 range, still in this bull zone, and just a good secondary pause following that rise. And so that's what I like here. I'm watching this one setting up. I don't think it's quite actionable yet, but I like the setup here, looking like it wants to start moving higher again. Got to get that dang BTC to do something positive here, but this one's looking pretty good. Very strong action all around. This pullback here didn't even get to the 3-2 on that overall move, but on this recent leg up, that's exactly where it came right back to. So very strong, right back to the 3-2 there in the shorter term leg, and also the moving average. So EOS, it's got to be on the watch list. Full disclosure, I do have some EOS in my longer term holds. So let's see here. This is going to beep. We should just sit here and watch the chart. It's going to just beep right now. No, it's not. All right, we'll come back to EOS. All right, so let's see here. There's another one I wanted to cover, guys, before I get to Spank Chain. No, I'm not going to cover Spank Chain. I'm just kidding. I did WAN. Let's do that one again. Let's go here. Did OMG. Did not do Dent. I'll do Dent next. All right, cool. So I'll do WAN again just because it's a pretty good setup here. So basically on WAN, just keep an eye on this lower range here. It had a good breakout attempt yesterday. The level that I was watching here was this near term. Saw some good volume come in. Unfortunately, failed breakout with the market all around, pulling right back. But so far, holding support, still in play, in my opinion, on the daily charts. Very young looking chart, so it's not going to take a lot to kind of break this out into new highs. So definitely one to look at. I covered ontology again. I know some of you guys are just joining, but ontology setting up, looking pretty good. Building an ascending base triangle right now, and everything's pointing to this thing wants to break out. We just got to wait for that confirmation, get some volume coming in, but that's the level I'm watching on this guy for a breakout here. Let's see, we covered Cardano. Where's BTC at? Sub 6,800 levels. Let's redo the ETH and the Litecoin. So looking at the ETH here. Let me move this here real quick. So what I'm watching here is if this thing can hold here versus the dollar on this pairing, this would set up a nice little bit of an inverted head and shoulder pattern, but it's got to basically hold this level right now. So this 370 mark, and if we can start to see some action move higher, ultimately confirmation is going to be clearing above this 417, 420 mark in and around that range with some volume, but it's looking pretty good here. It's also at a long-term, long-term base here, long-term low, big scheme of things. So let me go back to here. It's fully retraced this move, and it's sitting right at a long-term support level. So which is why I'm paying attention to it here now. It's just looking like it wants to bottom out, but has not confirmed on this downtrend on the daily. So we got to see that confirmation coming first. Litecoin was outperforming BTC here yesterday, was looking pretty good, breaking out of this some little bit of a tight range here, seeing some action, but pretty much just gave up that whole move now. So got to keep an eye and see where this one goes. Longer term, still looking weak here on the near term. Go to the daily, just like everything else, right? Bounce right into that moving average, and then just big reversal, undercutting that entire day, and looks like it wants to go lower. How low do we go? $100 Litecoin is kind of the level I'm watching here near term, so that's going to put you right around there. See if we can hold $100 Litecoin. Oh, there was a couple more. So we did Lumens. Aeon was looking pretty good yesterday. Man, what happened? Failed breakouts. This one was looking pretty interesting. I was liking the way this was setting up, and then had some good volume come in, and it just turned tail, and so far drifting lower again. If you go to the 4-hour chart, just not quite there yet. So got to pass on that one. 0x. The interesting about 0x is had that big move, on this Coinbase GDAX going to support ERC20 tokens today. And then they had the big pullback and kind of started basing out, but it hasn't gone below that breakout point. I mean, it's so far basing out here, so got to keep an eye on this one. I mean, it's kind of consolidating a little bit of that move and holding up relatively well. It hasn't seen any follow through yet or upside rally, but you got to keep an eye on this one, guys. 0x, smaller cap project all around, but I think it's got some good potential here. 0x USD pairing, just kind of sideways, no real clear base here to watch. So that's what I'm watching on the BTC side. I'm looking at this support here, and then if it can start breaking out above this little range here, kind of channeling in, then that's going to be some good confirmation. I think we'll see another leg up if we can get above that. Okay, so we have gone about an hour now. So I'll do a few more here, and then we will wrap it up. This midweek updates. Appreciate everybody joining. 40% for a McAfee special. McAfee. Yeah, that's funny, isn't it? I'm going to do a whole video on it, but here's a promise that I will make to you guys. I have never taken any compensation for any coin I've ever talked about on this channel, ever. And yes, I do hold some of them, and I usually tell you guys when I do, but I've never done any sponsored videos. I've never taken any ICO tokens. I've never talked about ICO tokens. And I probably will never be able to charge $100,000 for a tweet. But even if I could, I wouldn't. So just so you guys know, I'm going to try to stay objective, neutral, rational. And, I get a lot of emails from ICOs, from projects, from people. Hey, what can we have you on our video? What's your rates? Can we market? Can we get on your website? I mean, you have no idea. I get them every day, my inbox. And I just tell people no. Even if I like the project, I just have that as kind of a policy for my channel. I just want to keep it objective. And you guys will know if I tell you if I like a coin anyway, so. You know what coins I like. All right. So let's keep going. Now that I'm off of my soapbox. I just find it interesting how some of the other channels, like you see a coin mentioned on one channel and then on another and then another, like all at the same time. I'm like, makes me wonder. I get those emails too. I just don't make a video about it. Like, you guys are all talking about this coin all of a sudden. Anyway. Shield my Neo bags. So looking at Encash. This is what I'm watching here on Encash. It's been setting up pretty good here, and it's getting really close one way or the other. You can see this starting to tighten up quite a bit, and the key is just the upper trend line. It's really got to close out on this. What I don't like is it's just taking a lot of RSI momentum to get to this upper trend right now, and so even if it broke out, it wouldn't have a lot of steam left, if you will. So ideally, you want to see this thing maybe pause and then go. Right, so that's going to be what I'm watching here. That would give this kind of some room to reset and then go from there. But it's looking pretty good here in the near term. You've got 4 green 4-hour bars in a row. So ideally, you'd like to see some pause, some red there, let the moving average catch up a little bit and then go. That'll kind of keep it from getting a little too extended near term and keep the momentum going. But look at this chart. I mean, setting up. Got to keep an eye on this one. This one's looking pretty good here. And the thing with these, or the way I like these, is this is nice when you get these downtrends like this, because you don't need for it to clear, this point or this point to be a official breakout, because break of the trend line is usually a good enough breakout for me. And so that's what I'd be looking at, right? It just gets to get above this point here, and that's a breakout. So that's what I'm watching, but this one's looking pretty good. Encash. Dent. Oh, I got to go to the coin on Dent because it's on KuCoin. Looking at Dent BTC, it's actually looking pretty good here at these lows. Has been trying to really base out here. Had this big volume day a couple days ago and pulling right back and just starting to march higher here. Seeing some good action coming in. So the key is going to be to see how it acts as it approaches this range here. But all around, it's looking pretty good. The daily chart here, not bad, right? Looking like it wants to turn the corner here and start moving higher, living above the moving averages. And so it's certainly shaping up like it's putting in a good long-term low. Not a bad looking chart. I'll be honest. I know there's a lot of you guys that really like this project. I'm not sold on it yet. The whole data, mobile data marketplace sounds good in theory, but can they execute? Can they actually pull it off? And will it gain traction in the consumer market? I don't know. I don't know. But the chart's not bad. Not too bad. All right, let me see here. So in cash, dent, man. Let me see. No, now I'll skip that one. BTS ever end? The good news is, yes, it will. It will end. There is always a low. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to go to zero. Don't believe the press. BTC, crypto is not dead. Yeah, I know, but it still sucks. I hear you. I'm such a shiller. You know, I should probably shill all of my other stuff more often. I don't. I'm gonna do a commercial at the beginning of every single one of my videos now. Check out my website. Check out my this. Check out my that. And then on top of that, I'm gonna put a YouTube commercial before that. So you guys are gonna have to live through like 5 minutes of commercials before you watch my videos. I'm being sarcastic. I hope you guys know that. Kidding. No commercials. I'm going to try to keep this relatively commercial free, but I'm going to start shilling more. That's it. I'm going to start shilling. Oh, Dragon. Let's go look at Dragon. Where's the Dragon on the KuCoin? Come on, man. So looking at this, Brandon, you believe everything you hear on YouTube. So this one's looking really good here, Dragon. Nice action finally. I mean, Dragon's just been in this long kind of downtrend. Looks like it finally found a low here. And now it's confirming with a good little bit of action here on this most recent leg higher. So that's pretty good. It's looking like it really is going to hold that support level. The area that you wanted to see confirm here was a break above. Really looking like it wants to do that now. Volume is starting to come in off the lows. It's at a key support or resistance level now, but that's, you know, that's kind of normal for it to pause as it's moving higher here at this point. But look at the volume though. Not bad. So volume here at the lows, pulled right back in, tested the low, coming off the low with some strong volume. And so maybe finally Dragon starts to see a little bit of more life coming into this thing. Let me go here to this guy and see what we got here on the market cap for the Dragon chain. $181 million, not too bad. Back to 76 cents after hitting a low of what, like 40 or something, 30, 60, and then around there. So, but we'll see if it's gonna see some good action here, but not too bad. Looks like it's finally, maybe finally breaking that downtrend. Good old Dragon. So my overall market opinions. Now that we got the coin market cap, we might as well talk about that here. And so looking at the total market cap, right? I mean, obviously it's in a downtrend here. We broke below this low at the total market cap value here. But if you go to the alts, let me go to the yearly here. I mean, the chart is finally looking like maybe it wants to find a low point here. I mean, it's come all the way back to, you know, these levels down here, right? This was the last, I guess, I wouldn't say it's a base, but it was kind of the slower trajectory before the big run up, right? This was around 150 to 160 billion dollars for the altcoin market cap, meaning excluding BTC. And here we are back at that same range, right? 140 or so. Keep in mind, a lot of the names that play into this are those big caps that have just been really lagging versus BTC, and which is why I continue to think near term some of the mid or smaller cap names are probably better, right? So this represents Bitcoin Cash. We know that one's been getting smacked. Ripple, 50 cents, down from $3, right? ETH, down from 1,400 down to sub 400, right? So, I mean, just these three names alone carry so much weight when it comes to that altcoin market cap number. And no doubt some of the smaller cap names are getting hit pretty hard too. But if you look at the let me stack it, it's a little easier to see here. If you look at the market dominance, right, this section at the bottom, this white section, is the others. And you can see here it bottomed out around 17%. And here we are now back up to around 20%. So all those names below the top 10 or so have started to show some relative strength versus BTC and seen some more upside. You can see ETH has been losing, right? You've seen some of these other names that have been losing versus BTC. So it's kind of a mixed bag out there. You can see there's this other just found a low here mid-March and has been rallying ever since, while ETH is still dropping, Ripple still dropping, Bcash, Neo dropping, right? So that's you can't give this chart here too much weight, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I mean, this chart, yeah, it's interesting, kind of gives you this number, and no doubt, right, Ripple and ETH and Litecoin, they are very much representative of the crypto space, right? They're the big cap names, absolutely. But the underlying market is not always representative on what's this chart doing, right? You got to really just go name by name. There's just so many differences in a lot of these projects that it's kind of hard to lump them all together. But I think we're near a low, guys. I really do. I think we're hitting at least a near-term low point. Is it the low? Who knows? But I think we're seeing a pretty good low, and we're going to see a little bit of a rally here in the near term. I said the market's going to bottom in April. I'm going to keep saying that until April's over. And then we'll see what happens. So, all right. Let me see here. What else can we cover here before we wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen? Thanks for joining. Thanks for hitting that like button. Let me see here. Quantum. I did not cover quantum. Let me go through a couple more, and then we'll go call it a day. So we will do quantum USD first, breaking down, of course, along with the market. I was really watching this. I was hoping they would have put in a nice higher low. We basically retraced this entire move. This move was partly driven by announcement of Binance adding the USD tether pairs, but it's kind of drifted lower. Try to rally here, so we'll see if it can hold that $13 mark. It's got to be a good hold near term to maintain this, this bottoming action that we're seeing potentially here form on quantum. But versus BTC, it's still looking pretty good. You can see I've already got my line marked here. This is what I'm watching. I want to see this thing hold right here and break out, but I'm going to wait until we see a move higher from this little channel that it's in right now, this kind of trending area. So that's it on quantum. Let's take one last look at BTC before we wrap this one up, see where we're at. $6,800 is looking like where we're at right now. It was sub 6,800, but at this point, still looking relatively weak, guys. It's just not strong. Could we see a bounce? Absolutely. We're a little bit oversold in the shorter term time frames. You look at the 1 hour, I mean, it's kind of hitting these lows, a little bit of I would say barely a bullish divergence on that RSI, but this moving average is going to be the first thing to watch on that 1 hour chart, but it could bounce as high as, 7K or so before seeing another leg down. So just be cautious, be suspect of any bounces. As long as this RSI remains in the weak zone, I'm going to be cautious. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Appreciate everybody joining. Appreciate all the comments and the feedback, guys. And talk to you guys next time. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.